Hello, and welcome to Once Upon a Time in Black History. My name is Tamara Shiloh, and I will be your host. And happy Women's History Month. Today, I will be sharing information about one of those women in history. Today, we're going to talk about Allison Dunnigan. A change to the White House. Her father was a sharecropper and her mother took in laundry. Her grandparents were born into slavery. She endured poverty, segregation, and sexism. Yet, none of these factors impeded her ambition to become a journalist. Alice would become the first Black woman accredited to cover the White House, but not all Americans were ready to accept her in this position. Their actions would soon make that clear. Alice covered congressional hearings during a time when racism in America was rampant and the N-word was commonly used on the floor. She was barred from reporting on a speech given by then-President Dwight Eisenhower. On the death of Senator Robert Taft, she wrote her report while sitting in the servants section. Dubbed a straight shooter, politicians went out of their way to avoid her tough questions, which often involved race. During formal functions that were held at the White House, she was often mistaken for the wife of a visiting dignitary. A Black woman attending such events and alone was unimaginable. Sometimes it still is. Born in Logan County, Kentucky, she had a natural talent for writing. She entered school at the age of 4, and she was reading before first grade. At the age of 13, she became a writer, how about that, for the Black newspaper, the Owensboro Enterprise. Her assignments were one-sentence news items. The Russellville school system at that time only made education available to Black students for 10 years. On graduating high school, her parents felt that encouraging their daughter to further her education wasn't necessary. However, a Sunday school teacher who saw that Alice had promise, she stepped in. After some convincing, Alice attended Kentucky Normal and Industrial Institute, which is now Kentucky State. She became a teacher, a profession she loved, but it left her longing to write. Teaching jobs at that time offered only meager pay. During summer break, Alice worked for a white cemetery where she washed tombstones, worked in a dairy 4 hours each day, cleaned houses, and took in laundry. All this totaled about $7 a week, but a 1942 call for government workers would soon change the trajectory of her life. She relocated to Washington, D.C., where she worked for the federal government. After a year of night classes at Howard University, she accepted the position of Washington correspondent for the Black-owned weekly newspaper, the Chicago Defender. The editor first offered her less money than her male peers, of course, reasoning that she had to prove herself and her worth to the paper. The government at first denied her request on the grounds that she was writing for a weekly newspaper. Reporters covering the U.S. Capitol were required to write for dailies. She was granted clearance 6 months later, making her the first African-American woman to gain accreditation. In 1947, Alice was named bureau chief of the Associate Negro Press in Washington, D.C. For 14 years, she filed stories printed in 112 African-American newspapers across the country, a door-opening experience for many who followed. Now imagine that. Thank you for listening to Once Upon a Time in Black History. Remember, if you're interested in purchasing books about Black history, you can find great selections at my bookstore at www.multiculturalbookstore.com. Thanks again. My name is Tamara Shiloh. See you next time.